5, 4, 3, 2, 1. What's going on, people? This is No Labels Podcast pop-up edition. I am your host, Willie G. I do have my co-host in the building.
I'm trying to figure out how this go. I'm so used to.
She is not the co-host today. She is our guest, and we are at the pop-up conversation. We got the Queen in the building.
What's up, Queen Keandra?
Yeah, we Royal Ink magazine.
Yeah.
To the death of us today. So I want to start this up with first introducing yourself. You know what I'm saying? Introduce who are you, and what is Royal Ink magazine? You know what I'm saying?
Okay. If y'all been rocking with No Labels Podcast, you know that I am Audrey Aaron. Co-host of No Labels Podcast, but editor-in-chief, creator of Royal Ink magazine. We had our launch issue in fall of 2022. I kind of dropped it out of nowhere. I didn't do a whole lot of promotion around it. I just dropped it out of thin air. But it is a magazine. It's a digital magazine. It is a fully interactive digital experience. So yes, it's going to have all of the elements of a traditional magazine. It's going to have articles. It's going to have ads for brands that I know and believe in. But it's also got video content. It's also it's a very much an audio experience with the some of the animation and the videos. Any of the brands I feature, it's links that can take you directly from the magazine to their Instagram or to their websites, to their products. And so still building, still early in it. But I love it because what I like to say about it is that what I hope comes through is that it embodies the spirit of the local newspaper. So it's people that I know or people that maybe I've met through social media that are attainable, accessible, so anybody you see featured, hit them up, they'll probably respond back. These people I'm just reaching across, not trying to, I put it like this. I've always believed that I know the dopest people anywhere, the dopest creators, entrepreneurs, singers, artists, the people in their respective industries, mothers, pastors, just all kind of writers, all kinds of people. And I just felt like I've always wanted to have a place for my people, the people I believe in, to live that is bigger than social media. Not bigger, but something that won't get lost in a scroll cycle. Because people are posting so much quality content. They got quality brands, ideas, and we spend so much time scrolling. And people are bypassing and moving so fast. I'm like, I think this deserves to live in a bigger way. So it's all things that I personally believe in or people have been recommended to me. But these are all real people living real lives, doing real significant work and showing up in the world in a real significant way. And so one of the taglines that has kind of formed out of me just talking about it is Royal Ink exists to give space to significance wherever I believe it exists.
Give space to significance.
And space to significance, and it's a celebration of what I call my local online community. I grew up in a small town of about 1,500 people. The average person has maybe about that many followers.
Yeah.
And you may know them all in real life, or maybe people that you legit met online, and you realize that you do have commonalities, you do like the same things, you do laugh at the same jokes, or it may be people that you've had a whole full-on conversation in a comment thread or something like that, and you look up and it's been 2 or 3 years and you never really met them, but you feel like you're part of a community with them. And I was like, well, this is the best of people that I know either in real life or just through regular social media interaction. And the more I share mine with y'all, hopefully you'll share yours with me. And this is a representation of that, very much like a local newspaper, to where if we don't tell our stories, then who gonna tell them? Because maybe we don't have tens of thousands of followers. And so if you're competing to get on that level, I'm like, maybe you're called to that level, maybe you're not, but it doesn't mean that you aren't significant right where you are with exactly what you're doing. And I think it deserves to be celebrated. And so that was the heart in which I created Royal Ink.
That was
magazine.
A fire intro. So let me just start with congratulations.
Thank you so much.
We're coming up on what? Issue number 2? Second issue?
This is the second issue is launching this week. I don't know when this will air, but it's launching early February. Happy birthday to me. I'm launching it on my birthday, February 7th. But yeah, this is the second issue. Right now it's a quarterly publication.
Okay.
And so but of course, so 4 issues a year. But because it's so interactive, because it's articles and videos and artistry, within that 3 months in between the issues, I'm also having interviews with people, so deepening the content. And so I don't feel the need to crank out an issue every month or every 2 months, because okay, I'm introducing the launch or the release of the issue is like an introduction, and hopefully throughout those 3 months I'm learning about new people, gathering content for the next issue, but also deepening the content from the release. And it takes about 3 months to do that by the time you have interviews and even sharing just all of what they're doing, because these are active people in their respective industries and their artistry. And so it deepens between the issues. So it's not just a release and one and done. And the first issue was 80 pages. This second issue is shaping up to be.
And you do a lot of the work yourself, right?
I do most of the work myself. I do solicit contributors, so contributing writers. They'll give their articles to me. I do all of the of course, all of the editing of written content to make sure it's adaptable, but all of the graphics I do myself. But if people send me like a complete flyer, I'll post that. But sometimes I may have to edit it for certain things. And it's really like, I call it's curating. Like what content goes where. Like, okay, I've got these. It's a magazine, so you could jump from topic to topic. Yeah. And so if I have this topic, this ad should go near. It's like very much like curating an art gallery. Yeah. And so I get, and sometimes I don't know how it's going to shape up until I get all of the content in. And so I'm like, okay, until I get to the deadline and I see all that I have, I don't know how it's going to go. And that's so much fun for me as a creator. But I do most of it myself.
I want to stop there. We're gonna speak a lot on Royal Ink, but just that concept. Now, first of all, we got some throwback right here.
Hey,
back in the okay, now this is a little before our time, but still, you get the concept.
Check the date. What was that? 1970. This is 78, 79.
This is 1978 magazine. 78. Okay, so when we was coming up,
is all that sound gonna be in the thing?
When we was coming up before the internet got popping. Like magazines was like the hub of information. So the fact that what I'm saying, this is just me
for specific communities too.
Yeah, and it's like everybody had their own. They had fishing magazines.
Yeah.
Ebony magazines. Every culture had their place where they went. You know what I'm saying? So I like that you took a nostalgic idea and then you crossed it over until today's situation. But that's a magazine, you know what I'm saying? But I want to touch. I want the audience to know you.
Let me say, but we'll get there. But one thing I do want to say, bringing up nostalgia, I still love, like, if you see all around, I don't know if y'all can see the whole shop, but there's magazines everywhere, there's books everywhere. But even in creating it, if you've seen the first issue. So 2 things about that. If you've seen the first issue, I wanted to capture that nostalgia because there are tons of online magazines and digital publications, but it's still kind of a scroll experience. Once I figured out how to make those pages flip, you can sit like with a tablet and literally
actually
in a digital format. You can turn the sound off if it annoys you, but I personally love it. But you really can flip through it at your own pace, and it's still not. It taps into that nostalgia feeling of a book in hand, of a magazine in hand, of going through the actual pages and not just the scrolling of it. But the other thing that blesses me so much about I call it my legacy stack of magazines, that, like I said, I was born in 83. Those magazines are from 78, 79, but they still say my name. They have Audrey Aaron on them, but they were my grandmother's magazines.
That's
and
fire.
So this love for magazines ain't new. So
this is a
I'm blessed by that.
1978
Shout out to my grandmother.
Ebony issue. You know what I'm saying?
What was the hot new artist? Who was it? Shaka Khan, Bootsy Collins.
Classic. You know what I'm saying?
Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Bootsy Collins is the
hottest of the hot groups.
Earth, Wind, and Fire. Like, come on.
No, I don't think that's Diana Ross. There's one with Stevie Wonder down there.
I like that. Listen, I mean, that's creativity. I just want to. In the Joint Fire, you can actually turn the pages.
Yeah.
That was fire. You know what I'm saying? Especially somebody who came up in the magazine era, that was fire. But it just from a book to a magazine, we're gonna talk about like how that. I mean, it's not. It is a transition, but you still like right in author mode. So I guess it's in the same lane. I guess.
Yeah, I call it.
You know
I call it like branches off a tree.
It's
like
expansion.
My tree is still a writing tree, but This branch could be a book. This branch could be a magazine. This branch could just be an article somewhere, or it could be a Facebook post.
Yeah.
You know, and so I'm still a writer's tree.
I just want to talk about like, cause you said you do a lot of work right now, and it's
Yeah.
like, I understand that even as someone who's doing a podcast without the funds to hire a crew, I started out with the idea of wanting to do a podcast, and out of necessity, I had to learn how to be a videographer, a sound engineer,
Yes.
a podcast. So it was all at the same time. So I want you to give people a behind the scenes of what it takes to even put together a quality magazine, the work it takes, because a lot of people want the gold egg at the end. You know what I'm saying? Like when you're announcing, hey, the issue is done, but not realizing the late nights and early and the
Yeah.
work that it actually takes
All
to
the
make
late
something.
nights, yes.
You know what I'm saying? Come to fruition. You know what I'm saying? Like speak on the work aspect and like what it really took you to put out a quality, because it's a quality magazine. You know what I'm saying?
Thank you.
So speak on the work it took to even do that, and like the passion. Like you're an author. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like for me, I'm like, okay, why not stick to books? Why? What is the passion that brought out a magazine? You know what I'm saying? Because I like that quote you said when you said bringing what you said
Space to significance.
space to significance.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So we can speak on all that, but just I want to start with the work.
Ooh, the work. It is a lot of work. And it's a lot, and it'll wear you out. But also, there is a very real passion. It's a lot from the time I'm like, oh, I do have to get up and go to work. Oh, I have to do other things. But I'm not going to act like I don't love it. I
Yeah.
really do. And so I'm a writer, but I'm also a communicator. And so there are certain things that I've just always loved. I've always loved magazines. I've always loved taking these concepts that aren't necessarily directly related, but for some reason they are connected enough to live together in this same space. I love still photography.
Yeah.
And I love, especially now you see so many pose pictures. I like a great photo shoot, but I love candid photos, and I love pictures that I feel like I can see an emotion in.
The pictures that tell a story.
Yes, you
Yeah.
know, and so as I'm choosing, okay, let's say I get a contributing writer and they send an article, and then I'm looking through the right picture. What picture says the same things that their words are saying? That's a fun process, but it's tedious. So I'm stalking it.
But
I'm
that's the
stalking
creative-
Facebook pages. I'm stalking Instagram pages, looking for the life and the story in just a still shot to match the words. You do got it. There is no substitute for practice, for practicing on the videography or the video editing specifically, or like even to do the layout. Okay, when I write, I don't necessarily know how many words it will be. I'm very familiar with word count. So if somebody tells me this is 1,500 words, I know about how many pages that will be. If you tell me it's 500, I got a pretty good command of word count. But until I get it from my contributors, I don't know what the layout will be until all of the information comes in. Like, okay, so here's how many words it is. How many pictures do I need to supplement? It's a very artistic, but it's very tedious. But like, what are all of the elements? What colors are right within this story? I got one in my main feature for this one coming up. I went ahead and just did the whole thing in black and white because it conveyed a feeling that I wanted to convey. And not that the pictures weren't beautiful in color. And some of them, it was hard. I'm like, I hate to take the color out of this picture, but for the sake of the larger work, there's no substitute for practice. But I see inspiration everywhere. So I see it, of course, in magazines, in books, in real life. But if I pass a billboard as I'm driving, I'm like, oh, I'm always thinking, could I recreate that? Like from a graphic artist standpoint, what would it take to do that? And I might go home and practice.
Yeah.
You know, and all of these tools that everybody's using, the design tools, I love the scientific aspect of dissecting it to see what it can do.
Yeah.
And then putting that with what I want to do. And then maybe I have audio elements I could add. And it all tells a big story. And it's all these little stories that how do I stitch them together? It's a lot of practice. It's a lot of love. And I'm like you, I don't have none of my equipment is state of the art. None of my equipment, and I've done it all without any Apple products, just for the record.
Poor
You
girl.
know, so
Poor girl. They're gonna pray for her.
the most Apple you get is if I'm listening to music with my AirPods.
Same
But
with-
no, but it's I will say that one thing that I've learned that I'm encouraged by, because I don't have the most high tech equipment. I just don't, and I go with what I had. But even if you have those things, it's not a substitute for having a good eye. And so even when people send me, so I do, there are certain requirements for whoever I feature on my cover. I do want to have some professional photos for that. There is a polish that I need. But for articles, I'm like, just send me what you have and I'll find the beauty in it, is what I tell people. And that is developing your eye and trusting what you see and trying it out, and then I measure my work against published work. So I'll pull out an O magazine, I'll pull out Elle magazine, I'll pull out Vogue, and compare my work to this work that has been in the game for years and is reputable. And so I scrutinize it, not in a negative way, but I'm always trying to sharpen what I do. So it's not necessarily as far as the technology and the resources, it is the best that I have. But aside from that, how much work can I put in? How much can I study? I never stop studying. I never stop practicing, and then that's just the visual aspect. And then when I get the words from people, sometimes all of my writers have really good content. And I do believe as a writer that it's hard to explain, but like the writing of it is not necessarily, by the time you put in words on a page or in a word processor, that's the documentation. Writing happens in the mind. But what that can mean, though, by the time people send me their articles, it may be really, really great content, but it may not be the best writing. Or maybe I'll get writing from a speaker, and there's a big difference between writing for reading and writing for speaking. And so then I got to go in full-on word editor mode and cut the fluff and like, okay, I get what they're saying. How do I protect the integrity of their voice? This is when I'm starting to bring in other people, because I can write for myself. I'm pretty familiar and I'm always growing my voice. But one of the things I promise to all my contributors, I will edit for the sake of polish and presentation, grammar, punctuation, but I will not alter your voice in any way. And so from that aspect, you kind of get into ghostwriter mode. Okay, let me read this, first of all. Let me understand what they're trying to convey. And even when I have to edit, it still needs to be their voice. Or why did I reach out to them? Because their voice is different. It's just your writing voice is just as distinct as your speaking voice. And so in editing, in chopping away, in putting some words on the chopping block, how do I still capture the essence of what they're saying, and they can still recognize it as their own voice? And a lot of that is, I need my writers to trust me, so I take that part extremely seriously. Because I want you to write for me again. I want you to trust that I won't mishandle you or misrepresent you from visuals to words.
That's a lot, though.
It is a lot. That's it's a big responsibility.
I'm about to say,
that I've taken on.
I heard a lot of things, and I heard work ethic.
Yeah.
First of all, screen work ethic. I heard creative process.
Yeah.
I want to, because
late night, 3 a.m. That's my hard deadline.
You mentioned
3 a.m.
all these subtle details. I want to point out on the subtle details,
okay,
like how you would take the color out of a picture, because and as an artist, as someone who writes music, I understand the creative process. And this is side note. I'm gonna give this free. This is why you respect people's art. Now, if it ain't good, it ain't good. If you don't like it, I get your opinion, but this is why you respect, because it takes a lot to produce a good work. The creative process is a whole different story, and everybody's different. You know what I'm saying? So I get in the car, but when I get in the car, it's the same way. It takes a lot, just little study pieces, and it's scream work ethic. Okay, like let's take all the fluff out. Like I love what I do too. Sometimes I don't feel like doing what I love to do.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? That's when discipline comes in. Because sometimes I don't feel like doing what I absolutely love to. Like I love to podcast. I love to talk. The reason I started No Labels was similar to you, to give a voice to the voiceless. Because I'm like, I see a lot of people who didn't have a platform. So I say, hey, instead of we begging other people, let me just create one, and you come on mine. But I don't always feel like doing it. Like I gotta set up everything. I gotta break down everything, and it's like you do so you edit. You proofread, you put together photography, content. It's like, come on,
and it's really
people.
And even that part,
this ain't easy now.
It's not easy. And even though I feel like I do all of them well, writing is still my core. But like you were saying before, like as a podcast host, you had to learn how to be a videographer really quick, how to be a sound engineer, and you can do those. But and maybe you can relate to this. If I'm heavy on getting the graphics and layout right, there's still an article that I got to proofread and edit, and you got to kind of get out of the pictures mindset. And sometimes that's a
That's the hardest
switch
part.
to make.
It's hard.
It's like, cause I still got one article I gotta chop up, but I've been so heavy in the visual layout of it. I know I have to come out of that and into like another room to go in and edit these words. And you do have to switch.
You gotta wear different hats.
You do within the same work.
It's difficult because I get it because sometimes it's hard for me to write music because I'm in engineer mode.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Instead of me focused on creating, I'm focused on how they sound.
Yes.
How they look, stuff like that. And Toby,
Toby,
the Wigway. I always say his name wrong, but Toby the Wigway, he got this saying, and his mentor said it to him, and he was like, nobody's gonna help you if you just stand on the side of the road with your car. But if you start pushing your car, that's when people come along and help you. So it's like you took what you have, which everyone does who does anything. They take what they have, apart from excuses, and they do what they do. And truthfully, most of the time the best work comes out of. So you take this, it's already a good work. You know what I'm saying? It's already a quality work now. You can put it out now as a quality work. So imagine however long down the road, couple months, couple days, a year, whatever. Imagine when you get the funding that you need to do to what you want to do with an already moving car. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
oh my goodness,
be ready. If you stay ready, you never have to get ready. You know what I'm saying? So I respect hustlers. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's what I feel like you're doing. Like this is how I see it. And I just want to. We're gonna get into the magazine, but being that I do have a question, and I ask everybody this who I pop up.
Okay.
Being that this I do faith meets culture, and this is faith. Like how, this is what guys want you to do, but like, how do I want to ask this question? This is your purpose that guys want you to do. So how is this going to affect? How is what you do kingdom? That I put it away. I asked the same question. Like, how did God give? Because I know, like, for example, like the podcast, God basically told me, like, I need you to get into the mix. I need true voices over the airwaves. But I still do podcasts. I still have regular conversations. But
that's still your voice over the airwaves.
Yeah, still your voice over. So how is this kingdom? Like, when God gave you the blueprint, you ain't got to give us details, but just an overview.
I think I began to see it really clearly just as I was serving in church. I am an ordained elder. I did preach and teach regularly. I absolutely love to teach the word, but I'm still a word-based girl just in life, But, and my father is a pastor. My grandfather was a pastor, planted several churches. I didn't see, I always knew I would serve in ministry, put it like that, but I just didn't see it in the only way that I had seen it. I didn't see that for myself. And I'm just
you didn't see it in the traditional route.
I didn't see it in that traditional way. Like to the point like, oh, well, your dad's a pastor. Oh, are you going to, I didn't. I'm like, but I love these things.
Yeah.
And I think for me, it was as I was continuing to serve at my church here, my old church here in Savannah, that like sitting under that word, under that such sound teaching and growing in my gift and growing in anointing, but still going back and taking some of that same teaching and being so effective at work, I saw my work as ministry.
And it is.
And this is the work of fashion retail. I've been in fashion retail for 26 years. And the lives I've been able to touch through, like I got stories on top, a couple I put in my book, but, God has a way of working those things together. But once I saw the ministry in just day-to-day life, and once I saw my own work as ministry, even though once I got to the part where I was teaching regularly in church, and not a whole lot of people, because I didn't like my ministry family, we just didn't quite think like this, but you would have people every once in a while like, oh, you're ordained, oh, well, do you plan to eventually pastor? I'm like, no. Yeah. It was such an easy no, but, or do you do you think you'll ever start your own church? No, unless it's the Church of Royal Ink Magazine, but no, but what I realized though, and as I started to grow and be elevated and serve more closely with my pastors, I realized I pastor my store. I lead my store and build my team in the same way that pastor does this, and through this ministry body. And if I stay connected here, it makes me more effective at work. The people under me are blessed. And it was I saw the parallel in the structure. And so I started to see all industry gifts as ministry, and so if you got somebody who's a recording artist and doing hip hop, I'm like, if that's what God called him to, that is his ministry.
Yeah.
But if somebody who's an accountant and is helping people, manage their money well, like it's so much scripture that backs that up. People, how they show up in their motherhood, countless examples of all these different things, that like how people are showing up in their daily lives. This is their ministry. And yes, the sanctuary space and the actual body of the church, as far as the local church and gathering in a church building, absolutely has its place, but we spend the greater fraction of our lives outside of that space, and that's got to still be ministry. There's still got to be anointing for that. And so once ministry. I started to see my own industry work as ministry, and I'm anointed, leave me alone with some ladies in the fitting room. I promise you will feel the.
All right, so we talking once again, Royal Ink Magazine, and I'm gonna keep saying this throughout the whole episode because this is why we're here, and this is the creator, and I'm gonna keep saying it. But man, we don't went over so many things, but I do want to go over one thing, and we were just talking about it before we leave. Before I do that, you want to tell everyone how can they go to Royal Ink Magazine? How can they check it out? How can they read it? Link's gonna be in the bio as well, but you can shout out.
We'll have a link. So it'll be a link directly through my website, royalinkWriting.com. Also on Instagram at Royal Ink Writing. I'm sorry, at Instagram. That is a real Instagram, but for the magazine, at Royal Ink Magazine, and then on Facebook is Royal Ink the Magazine. So if you get Royal Ink and Magazine, I think you're good. But Instagram, Royal Ink Magazine. My website is royalinkWriting.com, and the magazine will live there. If you follow the Instagram, I'll have links directly to the issue, and then on Facebook, just Royal Ink the Magazine. Okay. Not hard to find. Pretty consistent.
You got it. But I want to talk about, before we get out of here, like being a trailblazer. You know what I'm saying? I'm not even talking about Royal Ink Magazine, but we are talking about it. But just like you were saying, like what you were doing, there wasn't a blueprint. Like what you were teaching.
Oh my goodness.
Like how you were teaching it. Matter of fact, it's like there wasn't a blueprint to do. So let's just speak on being a trailblazer, and because I know what it is to jump out, like be the first in your family maybe, or even the first of your friends. The first of anything, they take all the hits. Because they take all the lessons. Okay, I know how not to do it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But just speak on being a trailblazer and what, you know what I'm saying? Jumping out on faith and becoming an author and actually saying you're gonna do a magazine and actually doing, like just being the first to do it. Let's speak on that trailblazer. Like how does that feel? Is it lonely at times?
It can be lonely at times. Sometimes it's just you recognize that it's a very solitary work, not necessarily lonely. Sometimes it is lonely, but it's not always lonely, but you recognize that it is very solitary work.
Yeah.
One of the things, even as I think about the people that I look up to as trailblazers, even being referred to as a trailblazer, like this isn't the first time, but as that reference is coming to me sometimes, and the people that I look up to, part of me wonders if the people who are acknowledged as trailblazers feel it.
Yeah, I don't think.
I don't think that necessarily you can say, "Hey, my goal is to be a trailblazer."
Yeah. You can't.
The goal has to be something deeper than that.
Yeah, you can't do that.
It has to start with, I believe this thing as much as I believe that I'm alive.
Yeah.
And I think one of my favorite gifts that God gives is the gift of confirmation. And I think that that's really important if you are maybe blazing a trail or working without a blueprint. You know, you believe what God has said, but that confirmation is an amazing thing because it helps you feel like you're not crazy.
Yeah.
You know, like I was just saying, that's why I'm so encouraged by the teaching of Dr. Stevenson, because I know that I taught some of those same concepts I had no idea who he was when I was teaching this stuff 10 years ago, 8 years, 10, 12 now.
Yeah.
You know, but to see someone who that sound and that rooted, and, you know, not so much that, it's that this person is saying it, but it is a gift of confirmation that God gives you. Or if you're going, sometimes he'll, like for me, even when it comes down to the rules of royalty, it's just like, here's a principle. Now you go test it in your own life and in your own work. And even if people have something to come against it with, you can't come against my testimony. Like, you may not believe it, but I got results, at least in my life.
Yeah.
You know, and so I don't think the aim for trailblazers to ever be a trailblazer. You just got a belief that something, like, you like it. Like, even like when you're creating something, if you're creating music, again, like from a creative space, Molly Music was a great mentor to me for years. And one of the things that he taught me was, if you don't like it, what right do you have to expect some stranger to like it?
That's real.
You got to be your own first fan.
No, confidence is, it all begins with belief.
And so I think that goes back, it goes to belief, but it goes back to that attention to detail. You know, like, do you love it? Would you love it this much if you hadn't done it? You know, but from a trailblazer aspect, it has to be a belief somewhere, or at the very least, I'm entertained by this principle works in my life, you know, and it's been confirmed through something, through a result, through something somebody said, and confirmation can come from anywhere.
Yeah.
And I think that from that space of working without a blueprint, that is one of my favorite gifts from God is to be confirmed. It's like, I believe this, and that's what belief is. Like, I don't necessarily have the evidence yet, but I'm acting like I do. That's what faith is.
That's what faith is, yeah.
You know, and if you keep doing that, the substance will come. You know, and so I think God takes you through, and I think maybe sometimes that my brother said something that I thought was so profound, and my mom told me, so it's like a secondhand quote, but I know some things that my brother went through, but I thought it was such a poignant point. He was like, solitude is necessary, and I do think for trailblazers that you will find people like you as a creator, it's a necessary solitude. He said, but isolation can be dangerous.
Yeah, that's true.
And so shout out to my friends who've always believed in me before I ever had a book published, who the first time I ever taught Royal Identity got with me immediately.
Yeah.
I can name like 2 or 3 people that got with me from the first lesson. And so then they latched on, and even if as they saw me growing in it, I always knew I had their support. If there was a correction or like, hey, tighten this up, they would do it. But like, no, we still believe in you. We got you. They covered me, you know. And so to have the support of friends,
that's necessary.
That believe in you, even like they help you see what's still invisible.
Yeah.
You know, like
you
even you for years, you're like, where that book come? Like you know, you would ask, you know, because like I'm still doing it, I'm still in it. But then if you got the support of community of friends, like you do the work and you're getting the revelation from God in a solitary space, but you've got a community of people that can't see it either, but they believe in you and they believe that God put something in you, and they'll speak life and encouragement. And so maybe I could have stopped and not worked on the book, or maybe I stepped away a little too long, and all of a sudden Willie like, hey, where that book at?
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh, it is for somebody.
Yeah.
Somebody is still waiting on me to do this. And even if it's just one person, that one person is usually representative of a larger community of people that's waiting for you.
Yeah.
And so those road signs along the way, confirmation is a huge one. Community is huge. And get around people that believe in you, even if they don't fully understand.
Yeah.
You know?
You gotta find your tribe.
You do. And so it's those things. You know, do you believe God, first of all? And it's those moments when you're just alone with him, you know, in solitude. And then if you got a community of people that you can be with God in that community, you know, God is still the core of it, you know, and you just encourage each other, and you like what you like. And people that like, if you like something that's a little quirky, it's like, we aren't all just alike, but we like what we like, and it's cool. Like, I don't really get with that, but she do, and so they still rock with you. And so I think all of those things are necessary to I got my mother who who kept calling my magazine a newsletter. I said, Mommy, you gonna stop calling my magazine. I said, you know what, honey, you call it whatever you want. Once you see it,
you done with the newsletter, baby.
That's what she was saying. She's like, how's your newsletter coming? And it's one of those things, she still believed in me, and because she didn't quite see it. And it wasn't for her to see, but it was for her to be my mother and to love and support. And like she said, she's doing something. I don't fully understand what she's doing, but I'm checking on her to make sure she's still doing it. Yeah. And now she won't call my magazine a newsletter again, But it's all of those things. Like, people don't have to fully understand to support and encourage you.
I mean, that's true.
And, so I think it's a combination of all of those things.
I think it is.
And at the end of the day, what did God tell you? Meet him at his word to you. And so it's a combination of all of those things that I think, keep you going.
And that's powerful. That is super powerful. And yes, believe in God. And then after you believe in God, believe in you.
Yeah,
because as a believer, we know God can do all things. It's when it comes to us.
The whole, I'm stuck on that question. He's like, am I ready for success? I don't know. I want to believe I am, but the same God that has elevated me through all things. But my mother always told me as a child, she told me, she was like, you are not afraid of failure, Audrey. You have always been more afraid of success than you are of failure. Because I don't take things lightly.
Most of us are. What's that? My favorite poem, I quote it on Facebook all the time. It's not how it goes.
It's not that we are inadequate.
It's not that we are inadequate.
That we're powerful beyond measure.
Powerful beyond measure.
Yeah.
And it's like,
and playing down serves nobody.
They playing down, but it's like, truthfully, success scares us all more than failure. If we to be honest, you know what I'm saying?
I think even that fear, that apprehension, is an indicator that it's worthwhile. It's an indicator that it is significant. Yeah, if it won't let you go. How many thoughts come at us at a day that we won't dismiss? But you've got this thought that's 15 years old.
Stay there.
It's the reason it's still there because God hasn't changed what he said to you.
That's true.
Whether other people see it or believe it, that he didn't say it to them, he said it to you.
That's true. That's true.
And so I had no idea I would be able to bring along so many people that I love and believe in. And to start, like, I'm not reaching up for unattainable. I'm reaching around because I see and I believe in my friends the same way they believe in me. The same way that's why I was talking to somebody. I said, listen, they were like, I got you. I said, listen, we got each other. If you got me, I got you. You send me something, I'll represent it well. I said, well, they were like, what you need me to do? I said, keep making music. Keep making content. Keep doing the work. Keep posting, and I will continue to share it. I'll make space for it. But it takes the whole community working together for even Royal Ink magazine to live, because it's a space for other people. I've got some of my own writing there, but it's largely a presentation of look at how many significant people I know, and look at the dope things they're doing, from music to hair to taxes to raising children.
Anything, cooking, all that.
Cooking, eating.
Yeah.
All the things, just, existing in purpose.
No, that's
and
fire.
So I just, again, I'm honored to be chosen to do this particular work. And then the way that God builds the love into it for you.
Yeah.
Like, people are like, I couldn't do it. You couldn't, but because I'm supposed
to.
Yeah.
It ain't.
Like, he built a love for me to sit and stare at this and like, where does this comma go?
It ain't for
How
you.
many words is this? Is it 1,500 or 1,200? Because that means it's going to be 2 pages or 4. I love it all, and then to see all those details come together in this body of work. You've done an album before, to see that stuff come together.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing.
It's
more beautiful for you than anyone. But it's like they get their own. Everybody get their own story from it. Mm-hmm. But it's like what it really means. It's like
And then to be able to say, God told me to do this and I did it. I can't. To know you've been obedient in the very best way that you have. I've given, Lord, I gave the very best offering I could. I had that same feeling when I finished my book. I said, Lord, I did it. You told me to do it. It took me longer than I thought it should have taken, but I did it, and I did it with the most excellence that I could muster. Same thing with the magazine. No amount of likes from people can match that feeling of finishing something that you knew God told you to do and saying, you told me to do it. I didn't fully understand. I didn't have everything I thought I needed, but I had you. and here it is.
And that's all you gotta do. Cause at the end of the day, like people selling like how to be this, how to do this, but at the end of the day, every successful person would like I see it because I'm a interview junkie.
Me too.
And I see it, and it's always a common answer. Like when they ask, "How did you get there?" It's always, "I don't know." Like they can tell you the work ethic, they can tell you like what they did, all the stuff. Like all the ingredients are usually the same: work ethic, sacrifice, discipline. But how they got to where they at?
And I was telling somebody
they
too,
don't know.
you know, I was like, yeah, there are other people. I said, there's certain things I can teach you some techniques. I can show you some different tools and resources, but I can't give you the moment. I can't give you that service where I was anointed and got a word from my pastor, from God saying that I'm supposed. I can't give you that. I can't give you the years of study between the prophecy and the execution.
Yeah.
I can't give you the love I have for it. Like, I can give you techniques. So that's something that's going to have to come from within you. Like, I can't give you that. And so I think even that is, like, to the point where comparison can only go so far. Yeah. Because we can compare techniques, but once you start to compare process.
Yeah, you can't.
You can't really do that.
That's a whole nother
so
thing.
I think that keeps you feeling relevant within your purpose. Even if somebody else is like, I ain't the only person doing a magazine. I ain't the only person writing a book, but I know it's not so much about the book. It's the process to get here. It's the obedience. It's the experiences on the way.
And enjoyment.
And the enjoyment. But also, did God, and even to, like, if people get to a certain level of frustration or tiredness, one question would be, well, did God tell you to do it?
Yeah.
I remember texting my friend at one point. I was like 4 years in. I said, who would write a book if God didn't tell him to? Yeah. I want to be finished. I said, if it was up to me, I would stop now. Yeah. But God is still giving me things to say. And to be in a 5.5-year process with a book and things that I wrote year 1 and how they tied together with something that I wrote year 5 based on an experience that I had in year 5. That I could not have, like, I wrote something that I know, something that I just lived this year made it into the book and ties in perfectly with something that I wrote 5 years ago. Yeah. I could not have orchestrated that.
No, you couldn't.
And I can't really give that to you. So you need to take this desire and whatever to God and see what he says about what you're doing.
I mean, that's true. You can't, because you can't. At the end of the day, God is the one that promotes and demotes. I mean, our job.
But you can't. But also, you can't sacrifice the practice, and you can't sacrifice the technique. That's one thing I love about how David is described in the Bible. He is described as anointed and skilled. Yeah. And those are two different things. Yeah. And so, you can only go so far with skill without anointing. You can only go so far with anointing without.
You were saying some good stuff about like you keeping the passion and that's
okay. So that part I was saying, same thing with the book is when we don't have a whole lot of eyes on you, and you don't have a whole bunch of resources. Where's the passion for the detail and the excellence in the detail? I still want to put out something that I'm proud of, that I would love even if I hadn't done it. And I know that I can be critical because of my gift of writing, and I see in that way, so I got to critique it as though it wasn't mine. And I want to see the excellence as though, I want to be proud of it and say, hey, I love this work. Even if I hadn't done it, I still think this is amazing work. And if I can approach it in some kind of ways outside of myself, like see how excellent is the work. And so that brings me into a scrutiny of detail and attention to detail that I know that people who don't see the way I see through an editor's eye or the writing, they may not catch that comma. If I catch it, I'm going back to fix it. I'm like, or I look at a graphic, I'm like, this could do, but it could be better. I'm gonna take time and dig for the better.
And that's the mindset of a champion.
And it keeps me up to 3 a.m.
And that's most people But
I fall in love with the process. And if you can find, like you talked about, listen, you said that thing that blessed me so much that the reward can't be the post. Yeah. And so I find so much reward in the process. And so those are the things that keep me striving for the most excellent thing I can put out for the resources that I have. And I also believe that's an element of good stewardship.
And it's the mindset of a winner, of a champion, because I say all that. Like in what I do, I know you've seen it. I know I've seen it. I've seen people who music, podcasting, like they'll start it, and 3 weeks later, no, a month later, it's not going no more. Because it start at a high, and then they watch how it mellow out. People, because everybody's excited when you start something,
Yeah.
and then they watch how it mellow out, and then they no longer stick to it, and so it takes a different kind of.
What do you think that is? Do you think that they're continuing based on the response that they get back?
Yeah, I think like because I know what it is to put your all out. I mean, put your soul into something, and then you get like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and then it does. Like, I'm not saying that they're bad people, but it does get difficult.
Yeah.
To do it, and to do it, not only do it, but do it at a high level. You know what I'm saying? Like, I have literally performed in an empty building before. You know what I'm saying? And
I preached to 8 people.
and I had to act like it was me, my wife, the producer, you know what I'm saying, and 4 to 5 other people who was performing. And it was literally an open room with chairs, and it was like, and I had to perform that like I was performing in front of a stadium.
Listen,
with the same passion.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
and I will give always credit to my pastors, Eric and Bernadette Jackson, and I served in ministry with Molly Music, and one of the way he put it so funny, he was like, "Oh, they taught us we will sweat for nobody." He said, "Oh, we will full on sweat for," and he's
nobody.
Right. And I can remember even in his early stages, you see where he is now, but he did it for a room of 10 people before. I've seen it, I've seen us, like, again, that work ethic that I got from serving in ministry. My pastor hates late. We start on time. And if on time means it's just me, my pastor, and my first lady, and I got to teach Sunday school, we doing it.
Yeah.
But one of the things I love about that, let's say Sunday school goes for 45 minutes. You learn, and like, so, okay, I prepared for 45 minutes. Whether the people come or not, I'm prepared for it. And if it's just the 3 of us when we start on time. But, and you've seen this in church, like people will trickle in.
Yeah.
And you have to, in the moment, in the middle of presenting, you have to adjust. And the way that you talk to a room of 5 people is not quite the same way you'll talk to a room of 50, but in that same 45 minutes, you'll start with literally 3 people in the room and end with 50. And so you have to learn how in real time, in the moment, to adjust to the size of the crowd in the real moment. And so I think if you do that enough times, you realize that the crowd doesn't matter. And so even if you're putting it out for a small crowd, well, then how do I adapt it and make it meaningful for that small crowd? And then if a bigger crowd comes, I've learned how to adjust, at least in that particular space. We're still learning with the magazine, but it's just so much of just the training of the years of serving in ministry has prepared me in ways that I couldn't have imagined for this work. But it's the disciplines, it's the work ethic that people want to shortcut.
Discipline is a good word. That's me and Keanu's word of the year. And like discipline is basically like training your mind to do what it doesn't want to do. You know what I'm saying? Like, cause like you don't need discipline when you want to do it.
Right.
But,
right. You don't need motivation, and it's like you ain't gonna always feel motivated.
You're not.
But also, I do think there's some days I do not feel like it, but I always love writing. Yeah. I don't always feel like writing, but at the end of the day, the love is still there. The time may not always be there. The energy may not always be there. The resources may not always be there, but I know that part of the ingredients that make me up, according to my creator, is a love for the craft. Love for the pen, love for the commas, love for the Oxford comma.
That's what I was looking for. Like that answer. That answer right there, I was looking for you to say that, because that's the only, like, love for what you do, passion, love for what you do. Is the only thing that's going to keep you going when it's slow. You know what I'm saying? You have to really love what you do. That's why they say do what you love, because if you love it, it's going to get you through the rough times. And me personally, I think the rough times is only for God to build character. But for a lot of time, because especially for really gifted people, like if you when you're really gifted, it's like obviously you gifted most of things. So it's like those times, like what the Chinese bamboo, when it be underground for like 5 years and then it shoots up in the matter of like months. You know what I'm saying? But it's like
I was just telling somebody, I remember I read this somewhere when I was in like middle school or high school, and it always stuck with me. And the question was, I was reading something. The question was like, so where do skyscrapers come from? These really tall buildings. What's the first step to building a really tall building? And the answer is you dig a really deep hole. The first step of building a tall building is you dig a really deep hole.
Yeah.
Another thing I wanted to bring up, even with the way I'm bringing in content for the magazine, is if you do something and you commit to the excellence, whether the eyes are on you or not, I'm able to go back because I've always done the very best with what I had at the time, with the knowledge I had, the resources I had. I'm able to go back to things that I wrote literally 15 years ago. And because I committed to an excellence even then, there's a timelessness to it. It still works. Even for some of the content, for a couple of my contributors, one of the things I asked for, I'm like, I don't need you. I don't want this to feel like work for you. I want, just the same way this feels like an extension of me for my contributors. I want it to, if it feels burdensome, we're not doing something right. And if we're not having fun, we're not doing something right. But also, part of it, like, and they'll ask me, what do you need from me? I'm like, for a couple of y'all, all I need is permission to stalk your page and pull what I want to pull. I'm going to always get permission if I'm using pictures of children, always.
Yeah, I feel that, yeah.
But in certain things, but for a couple of my contributors, I just go back and scroll through, and I'm pulling things that they wrote in 2012. But because they were committed to excellence then, and have been consistent, that stuff is still good.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I literally text one of my friends. I was like, listen, that fruit is still good. You don't feel like you have to create new content for it to still be relevant. And I feel like if you're doing what God has called you to do, because God is always relevant, then your obedience to him in whatever time he told you to be obedient, when he decides he wants to come back and pull on that thing, it'll still be relevant now. Yeah. And there's proof of that in the things that I have included in these issues.
And that's fire. It's like we was talking about this for once again, people. We talk about Royal Ink magazine. I'm gonna keep Royal Ink magazine. We was talking about this. Okay,
I know.
Are you?
Yeah.
Are you prepared for success? Are you ready for that? But what I mean by that, because earlier before the podcast, we were talking about how it's detrimental to anybody to get into competition.
Yeah.
But success automatically brings it. You know what I'm saying? Because everybody's not doing it. You know what I'm saying? So it's like. I asked you that, like, are you prepared for Royal Ink to blow up? How, you know what I'm saying? Because with that, and it's like, I just want to speak on, like, because you say being content, and me and Darius, we was talking about that. It's a lot of discontentment and going on, right? A lot of social media and a lot of comparison. You know, like I was saying.
I just know your shirt said winning streak. I love it. I'm
winning
sorry,
streak,
I was just so distracted.
We on it. We on it. How do you stay out of comparison? I'm not even gonna say competition, but how do you stay out of comparison? I know we all human, and a thought might slide in it here and there, but it's like, how do you stay content with what you're doing and not want to compete with people who are in your lane? You know what I'm saying? 'Cause I'm not an artist. I mean, I'm not.